please continue enjoying your delicious and healthy lunch, and and we'll get started here. Welcome.
Thank you.
I have a little story to tell you that way back in an earlier ice age, when I was doing a TV show called Night Watch with Charlie Rose. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. And I booked you as a guest, and you came with all these great posters that broke down all the things that we needed to know about food. Some may argue we didn't need to know it, but I felt we did. And they were wonderful, and I covered my walls with them. Susan Toffler's here, she may remember. And the members of the staff would come in then to look and see before they were eating what was in whatever they were eating. It was an epiphany for me about food. So.
Well, our organization survived on the sale of those posters
really?
For many years.
You didn't arrive with them today, though.
No, but we do have copies of Nutrition Action Health Letter.
Yes, yes, and everybody's got one on there. Do you still make those posters?
We don't. They went out of style in the
Why?
early 80s, I think.
Why?
In the
because
70s,
they had too much information?
No, I think people moved from group houses to suburban houses.
Yeah.
And posters covered the walls of group houses.
I see.
But the suburban houses were just, I don't know,
but
slicker.
Wouldn't they have been nice to have in schools?
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
But now the internet is replacing all the printed materials.
Yeah. Well, that's true. But I didn't find them on your website either, so please put that back up. They were great. Before we get into food and all of that, you've been with the Center for Science and the Public Interest since, I think it's 1971.
That's right.
You've been doing Washington for a long time, so you couldn't have survived Washington all this time if you didn't know your politics. What do you make of the presidential race right now, especially the Democratic race?
I think it's exciting and energizing.
Really?
When you look at, right now, the last couple of weeks, I think it's gotten ugly.
Well, that's really what I'm talking about.
I think it's really unfortunate because it was, kind of high-minded. And if you look at how many Democrats are voting in the primaries, it's astonishing.
Right.
How the battle.
No, the numbers
how
have
Obama,
been astounding. That's true.
Yeah, which is, I think, encouraging, and I just hope the battle's over soon and doesn't go through August.
In your experience, because you've had to fight your fights and be in your wars. How far does the negativity get you?
How far has it gotten me?
Well, anybody. When you're trying to achieve something here.
I'm always positive. I always like to say something good about everybody and everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, even when they're saying the opposite about you.
I'm always nice.
You think that's do you have a candidate?
I'm not allowed to discuss that in public because we're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, and the IRS will yank our tax-exempt status.
That's fair. But you do have a candidate. You're just not going to tell us who it is.
Yeah.
Well, let me put it
this way. But I don't
way.
contribute.
Okay, that's all right.
Because my wife and I would cancel out.
Okay.
So
I
figure, let's
see.
save
Well,
the money.
very. Can you tell us who her candidate is? Who's her candidate?
I'm not sure I can say that because now I'm the opposite
I don't want to put you on the spot. There's another way of getting to this question. How will, through the prism of what your organization needs, what do you need from the next president?
Well, most of our work deals with health issues.
Right, I know.
And we need somebody who cares about public health. And the Clinton administration certainly had some of that with regard to tobacco. Not so much in our area, food safety and nutrition. Although, remember Mike Espy at the Department of Agriculture, he came into office weeks after the Jack in the Box food poisoning episode. So that was always high on the agenda, but not much else. I think what I'm looking forward to is broadening the discussion of health care to include health. Preventing the disease in the first place rather than ensuring, or in addition to ensuring 47 million more people. Health is often left out. And I think the only way we're going to be able to afford health care is if we cut down disease rates. And so much of the illnesses that are very expensive, diabetes, heart disease,
Yeah.
cancer, are preventable.
Especially
Except we
through
don't.
nutrition.
Partly nutrition,
Yeah.
exercise, not smoking, drinking moderately. We'd save literally, I was going to say, save hundreds of thousands of lives a year. It's really postponing those deaths.
If you were going to give the Bush administration a grade on how they've done in your realm, what would that grade be? And if you could break it down too.
Well, on food safety, it's an absolute disaster. As witness, it refuses to take the bull by the horns and grapple with the problem.
Well, and literally, they just had the testimony yesterday from the fellow who owns the slaughterhouse, where they had the worst case of recall in history recently,
Right.
and all the downer cows. And he actually, while he was testifying yesterday, admitted, whereas his written testimony had said that the contaminated cows did not make it into the food supply. The downer cows did, that it turned out that they did. But is this in the realm of what you're talking about?
Yeah. There they grabbed the bull by
the
forklift.
Right, yes. Right. Yeah, that was some of the nicer things they did when they weren't dragging them with chains.
So in food safety, it certainly gets an F. In the area of nutrition, has the administration done anything good? I can't think of anything.
Right,
A
okay.
couple of the big things we're working on are reducing trans fat intake and getting it out of the food supply.
Right.
It's a totally unnecessary fat that's been
Well,
causing...
let's go back on that. Let's do
Okay.
let's do the tutorial on trans fat, because I think a lot of people don't really know what it is. They hear it and they think they can't eat steak anymore. And that's really not what you're talking about.
No, they can't eat steak for a different reason.
Well, we'll
We
get
could
to
get to
that.
that.
But let's just stay with trans fat for a moment, because my theory about trans fat is always that it's what the food companies came up with to stuff into our food, not unlike the cigarette companies stuffing nicotine into our cigarettes to make the food cheaper. But
That's partly it, but like many things, we could blame this on the Jews.
okay. Tell us. Tell us how.
Crisco was developed about 100 years ago, and it was marketed especially to New York Jews who wouldn't use lard for baking. So here was a hard fat made from vegetable oil.
Okay.
And it
interesting.
works in pie crusts and so on.
No.
And then it gradually
Some people
spread.
swear by it.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's been very useful. And for people who don't want lard or beef tallow, which isn't commonly used, it turned out to be a great substitute, and it worked. And it was never really tested in terms of health effects for many, many years. And then in the 1980s, 1970s, there was a little bit of discussion about trans fat, is it safe or not? And
Well, is Crisco the king of all trans fats?
Crisco is the quintessential trans
Okay.
fat. They take vegetable oil, they treat it with hydrogen, and that turns the liquid oil into something like Crisco or a stick margarine.
It gets soft in the pan and then hard when it's back in
That's right.
in your body.
That's right. Yeah, when at room temperature, it's hard like margarine or Crisco, and that's in pie crusts like that. And it turned out to be much more versatile and useful. So, fast food companies, many restaurant companies have been using it, and its use really proliferated probably in the 50s, 60s, 70s.